Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Leese.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Happy Valentine's Day, Dave.
Happy Valentine's Day from all of us here at the skating lesson to you. Wearing red, all of us, for Valentine's Day, Heart Health Month, all of it. This is This and That. We're going to be discussing everything going on in the skating world this week. So if you are new here, please subscribe below and smash that like button so that we feel your Valentine's Day love. And let us know in the comments if you're wearing red, what you're doing to celebrate COVID Valentine's Day. I sent Michael Shanley flowers.
Oh, how nice.
Right. And, you know, they give the order when it comes, right? And I see that it's like at his house and I'm like, okay, like, just gonna like.
Do you want to acknowledge that that's been delivered? Yeah.
Like, hello. Like, they just left the box in the front door. I wound up after like an hour or so, I was like, did you get something? No. What? Like.
Well, at least it was cold out, so it kept the flowers fresh. Yeah.
He's getting so many gifts. Our TSL viewer Haley sent him all of these Porsche like jackets and like polos. So now he feels like a race car driver, and you know, because he loves his Porsche. Like he
okay.
puts all his money into his car. You know.
Yeah, things I don't have to worry about in Manhattan, which allow me to invest otherwise. This is because someone, and it just takes one person, someone missed it last week. So I was like, here's my flamingos for this.
Because you were standing last week. Are you standing this week?
I'm standing this week, and I stand up for flamingo ceramics. I'm feeling much better. Okay. And I'm getting sort of near the end of my recovery process from my surgery. How are you feeling, Mr. COVID?
I am feeling, I took time during COVID, which I really wondered about some of those skaters. First of all, some of them may not be eating properly. And you also have to worry about like what kind of strain someone got and what kind of rest. And if there's any performance enhancing drugs going on, that could be immunosuppressing. But I was very lucky that, I don't have lung issues. I have stamina issues, and I have, more importantly, I've lost all my muscles. So I've skated 3 times this week, and the first day I went to do a sit spin, and it was like, my brain was like knowing where to fire the muscles. You can hear like you feel like your muscle like try to fire, and it's just like not there. So like rising up out of a sit spin felt like a certain kind of death. But it's getting back. I skated 3 times. Yesterday I worked in edges for an hour. Like Galina does this thing like loop step that she wants. It's really it's a mohawk back outside 3, mohawk back outside 3. It's like very, very Russian. If you would see like a Slitskaya or someone kind of like a loop entrance for it, and she wants it like a certain way. And I was, by the end of the session, I was like, wow, I'm getting like a lot of like lean on it, and like some, but I had like the time to just do that. And then tomorrow I'm going to work with my first coach, because sometimes we need someone to build us up a little bit and
return from whence you've come to appreciate all that you've accomplished.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to get like more steps, and she has like, I can do different things on the ice, but Galina has like a very specific like type of steps that she does. And then my other coach has like her steps, and we could put them together. Galina's thing is she makes you skate really like wide and really like big. And my other coach is like more the legs a little bit closer together. So I think if I could do a program that has like a balance of the two, it could look very nice. So
I'm intrigued. Like, so we were talking about like how you used to talk about Frank's like sort of very straight entrance into something like the loop for Michelle or something like that. And Galina, you're saying, has these very specific entrances versus like Victor's entrances. Do you find it beneficial in skating for the coach to have their system and you jump on that train or you don't? Or do you find it more effective when the coach is catering more to each person in front of them?
I think when they're catering to, I think there has to be a mix. Like, I think you want your coach to have a technique, but also you want them to bend a little bit to work for you. But you do want them to know what they're doing and not to just be winging it. And I think if you see in Ice Diaries, which I uploaded, there are some coaches in there that seem very green. And then there's Frank, who's like talking to Danielle Cayley, and he's like, Danielle, you have to decide what you want to do with your skating. But like, he has a vision and like idea, but like they do make adjustments for you, but you want someone to have. And there's like, my first coach, her technique is not that different from Galina. There's like just nuances that are different, and maybe more developed ideas. And then like Victor and Galina like have the same technique, but they focus on different things. Like Victor was always like really working on like the arms in the air, and like when you take off, how your arm should go. And Galina works a lot in like the entrances. So if Victor could come back from Ukraine before I compete at the nationals, hi Victor, that would be tune up, you know, like
Yeah.
you're not stealing Galina's thunder. Otherwise, I was thinking maybe I'll go to Virginia and like visit Galina's former assistant, Mr. Valentine Nikolaev, who's, you know, also a jump guru, and maybe, you know, he can give me that extra little spark in my jumps too. And because
I would,
that's why I wanted to work with Galina, is because I worked on the Victor technique and I liked it so much, and then I wanted to work on it. So I think you like, and we had this whole, Galina called me this week because I showed her Kostornaia's choreography video, because Kostornaia, we can get into the conversation. Kostornaia is working on a choreography with Shae-Lynn Bourne. I guess she's been doing a new program over the last couple of weeks, and they posted a video on the Angels of Plushenka where they were showing Kostornaia like learning her arms and stuff with Shae-Lynn. And I think Shae-Lynn is very, very talented, but I also have to wonder about the efficacy of Zoom choreography when there are so many choreographers in Russia that they would have access to, because I think that when you're with someone on the ice, it's just more organic.
Especially for the first time. I think if it's your go-to choreographer, they've choreographed with you for years and they know how you work and they know how to say things, but like in a new collaboration without hands-on adjustments and things like that, I would imagine it's rather difficult. And I just wonder, like, what did you feel about her choice in someone like Shae-Lynn for a skater like Kostornaia with her qualities?
So Galina thinks it might not be a match. She thinks that Kostornaia has a softer quality and that Shae-Lynn is more of like a Morozov angular quality, and she's not sure if it's like an exact match, but didn't say that it wasn't a match, right? She was like, Shae-Lynn's very good. This is a very American style. This is a very Russian girl who comes from Yelena Tchaikovskaya's school, who has a soft style to her. That's why the Angel program worked, you know, so well for her. You know, I think there are people that love or hate her short program, and it wasn't done by Shae-Lynn, but I do think it has more of that style to it, and that's probably what she likes. You know, I just wonder, can you ever replicate that same, I think some of the best choreography comes from playing on the ice. And can you play the same way over Zoom?
Right.
Maybe if Shae-Lynn is in the rink and you're in the rink, you can still do some of it, but there's something about being with the person next to you that you might miss out on. And that's what I'm talking about. But I'm curious, the bigger thing, I think, I think it comes down to music. What kind of music are they picking? I think the Romeo and Juliet was a bad choice. Just not because it's been so done, and the way that the edit, just didn't think it was the best. Just the different pieces and whatnot. But and for her, she just seemed kind of phoned in before. And I think it was a new program, and she forgot the choreography, and she was behind. And I think it just was slapped together. And hopefully, you know, she changed her hair, which is, as Nojan likes to say, a sign for new energy. So that to me is a sign that she is trying to push for this Cup of Russia final. I just wonder, how much of that program were they learning? Is this the right time to be learning a new program? Does it matter? If that girl can land a triple axel, does any of the rest matter?
Well, like Sandra used to say, like the program will only matter if everyone else delivers, but we are talking about Russia, so everyone probably will deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just on the bubble, right? And that's a stressful position to be in. It can also be an energizing position. So she has to deliver. And I wonder, you know, last year, people describe Kostornaia as having like this laid back, sometimes calm confidence where, you know, she was not maybe as responsive to a Terry's style of coaching. She's just like in her own world, love her or hate her. which is good and bad. It has its pluses and minuses, but she's not, you know, working like Sherbakova or Valyeva or, you know, Zagitova, you know, to get these different, you know, kinds of elements. And she's more in her own world, and they butted heads. And I think this year she might have lost some time before COVID and not, you know, there's the way the season, and now she needs to work really hard. But I think that she has shown it in the past that she is very capable of being a consistent performer, and she's had injuries and maybe they're healed. And I know that people were saying, you know, she just had COVID and be nice to her. I mean, all of these skaters have had COVID. It's just kind of how you got it and then the response. There's so many factors here. I think she was very behind, and I think that's one of the biggest issues she's had all season. So I'm curious if she's doing her run-throughs. We see a lot of sections from her. So I think we all want to see that triple axel. Can she do it? Can she not do it?
Yeah.
Do it. So I don't think that they're going to put her on the world team without it. It would have to be a spectacular program of which, but you have Tuk Demisheva trying 2 triple axels. I don't think that you can kind of justify it this season.
Right. Well, and
how do you think about her and Shae-Lynn? Do you think it's a match?
No, I don't. Because, and it's interesting, I thought the Morozov comparison was obviously, for many reasons, totally the right comparison to make. And I associate that as a bit more flash. Like, I'll never forget when Caitlin and Andrew suddenly came out with a Morozov program, and you were like, oh, right, I forgot what these kind of look like. And it just has a bit more like pizzazz. And I don't view Kostornaia as a pizzazzy skater. I think, if anything, she's more of like a Lori type than a Shae-Lynn type. Like, I want to see something lyrical from Kostornaia that harkens back to like a vintage era of big, beautiful skating.
I think she's almost like a Marina type, you know?
Marina would be a great choice.
But you'd have to maybe bring the music to her, because sometimes she just like gives the girl Gone with the Wind, or, you know, one of the war horses.
Yeah.
And I think for Kostornaia, like maybe you go like uber classical, you know, like some like
that's. I mean, maybe it's just because I am a classical musician, but there's no one is doing classical music really. Yes. So it would be such a moment for her to drive home the point. If she wants to prove she has better skating skills than anyone else, lean into it. It's harder to reward PCS skating to Billie Eilish than it might be if you're doing a beautiful, you know, balletic program.
I think it also, I don't think they have the time for a balletic nuanced program for this year, but that's the reality. But we have to see. I mean, I think they want to send her. Lekurnik likes her. He visited her for monitoring, but, you know, and there's, you know, there are all sorts of rumors about this camp, and that they're asking Terry to take everyone back, or that everyone is making overtures and different things kind of there. Galena's take, she was wondering about the, you know, the switching of the techniques, and at this point in your career, is it worth it, right? And, you know, for Trusova to be doing the quad with it over the, you know, her arms over the head, and the fact that, you know, she was kind of under rotating that quad lots, is it worth it? And I was looking at Jelena, and I was thinking about her because she had set technique, and I don't know if they're thinking long game for her and switching it, but when she does land those quads this year in her triple axel, as we saw in the juniors, she lands a little bit forward and a little bit like swooping on the toe. And I don't know, do you put Sergey back in the mix? Do they have him not in the mix because they're teaching a different technique? Like, I'd be very curious what that strategy is, because I think right now you have one of the best technicians, and then she had a rough nationals, and I think you have to look at why is that and what is the reasoning, and maybe they have a good reasoning, but switching.
But it's also so hard to put all of that pressure on one moment. Is that one moment at nationals indicative of the progress she's made and the journey she's on? That's always the tough call. Was that a moment, or was that the indicator as to?
Also, she was doing shows before, you know, she was in those shows. I mean, I don't think it took all of her. In one hand, you're getting someone experience in front of an audience, and that's very beneficial in the lead up to your nationals. Is that the right, you know, decision? These are all kinds of things that are at play here. I mean, these skaters are products at some level. And
well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I mean, this sort of goes into, I watched some, I couldn't do all of them, but I watched some of the Ice Diaries that you were posting, which was a really fascinating journey, like you're saying, in seeing all these coaches back to back dealing with their students, some as very close connections, some as business connections, some as maybe more toxic connections. And you feel like it sometimes, and this also coincided then with the Ting interview with Polina about this concept of working smart versus working hard. And I think we know coaches that think mere repetition or numbers equate to effective training. Whereas if you're just making the same mistakes over and over again, or if you're just popping over and over again, or you're just like breaking yourself. I loved when the trainer on Ice Diaries, he was speaking up and he goes, "Oh yeah, sport is terrible for you. Like it's so unhealthy, sports." And I was like, it totally is. Like everyone's literally breaking their bodies. And so it's fascinating because it does seem to follow a bit more the discussion we've been talking about in Russia. Like this Atari, like go at it, and you're rewarded for almost working until you collapse. And we've seen several skaters in Italy and in Russia these past few weeks, like damn near collapse at the end. And you're like, oh God, these are people, not just products. But yeah, it's crazy.
Well, the Ice Diaries, it's so interesting to watch, like Frank's perspective and versus, I mean, he was with Ken then, but they were more on the same page. You could tell Ken is greener at that point and has his energy, and you wonder like how the assistant thing works. And then you watch, it was cool to see Cindy Bortz coaching Danielle Cayley in there, Cindy Bortz from the 80s. But I mean, Tom Z is
I mean, obviously that's who I'm talking about.
Tom Z, and then you see Julie Berlin seems greener at that point. You know, when you see a coach there for the first time at the Grand Prix, and when you talk about that, I think that's what they look like, a first-time coach at the Grand Prix, and in that season and everything that had happened. And it looks more like, okay, rookie mistakes, but you can't be a veteran unless you have your first time. So
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Then and it's like the struggle, like, do you stay with the coach who's the first time, or do you go to a more experienced? And I think that's, you know, different things, you know, where you are and what you need. But
I just think about learning styles. Like, I have to be honest, I was less familiar with the skater Tom was working with, the junior champion.
I want to find Sandy Rucker and I want to interview her. I know that she worked with Dartfish in Colorado for a while. I don't know if she still does. I don't know like her social security number or anything about that, but I do know that she was a Tammy Gamble skater when Tammy was in California.
Okay.
Won junior. Now they make a huge deal about her winning junior. She did win on her third year, which is, you know, longer than someone when you think of someone winning junior, perhaps. But
right,
she won it. You can't take that away from her. I just noticed that the coaches brought up her being junior national champion constantly.
But she was junior national champion and then went to Colorado.
I think that's
how they were framing it, because Tom kept being like, this is new, but she came to me injured. And it was just the difference I saw.
Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, the difference I saw between Frank was it wasn't about Frank. And with Tom, it was sort of like, why are you messing up for me? Like, I'm sure inside his mind, it was like, the cameras are here. Like, will you just land this jump? And like, and Frank didn't care.
You know, Frank has his own, all these coaches have egos, but what I got from Frank is that he loves the art of skating. He loves the game. He loves the day-to-day work and the incremental work and the polishing, right? Meanwhile, Tom is like, why are you not doing a lot? We need this number of repetitions and blah, 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 blah. And it's so, I don't know, is if you like Tom Z's or not, my personal opinion, he and I would not be a mix. I think that he has valuable things that he can teach, but I think that there's a lot of branding and a lot of jargon and numbers throwing at, and not a lot of emotional response to the person in front of him.
I thought the great thing you said once was when you were like, he's thought of everything but the human element. And that was the part. So she was popping and they like TheraBanded her like legs together so she wouldn't pop in the air. And she was doing a thing with her.
That's not a horror. These are different techniques, right? Like,
yeah,
that's not horrible. for her.
Well, and then adding a neck brace, he was just adding
The neck
more
brace
stress.
Okay, so the neck brace thing, he's trying to fix her head position in the air, which is a valuable thing. It looks really shocking. But I think you're also layering it onto the fact that we're seeing someone that has a clearly broken back, and he's acting, instead of working with her, it seemed like they were working against each other. And they didn't have like a come to Jesus moment for whatever reason, be like, you have a back injury, let's take time off and heal this and then work back. Look, she had no business competing that season. It was going to be a train wreck. So why put her out? Why not?
And you saw her resign to that fact also emotionally. I mean, she wasn't in her body, not even in the skating, but like as a person, she kind of left her body when he was talking to her. You knew nothing was going to happen.
The sport, right? Like that's the grind that pushes someone out of the sport when you're not working. And look, is she the easiest person to coach? Probably not. And she was a teenager and they have expectations, but this is the whole thing as a coach where there was no, there was no relationship together, right? It was almost like she went from a Tammy who has her assembly line of students to Tom was his assembly line. And she, to me, looked like maybe she needed someone with more one-on-one, less of a.
And she was in a crowded, chaotic rink. And then it would pan to Alyssa Sisney just being beautiful in a spin privately. Like with a one-on-one thing with a coach that was attentive. Like you were just like, oh yeah, this is lovely.
But I think, at that point in time, Tom had a bunch. He wasn't a huge name yet. That's why his ego, to me, there are certain things that he says, and maybe it's not factual. It's nothing that he says that is like factually inaccurate. It's the delivery. And it's when he chooses to say certain things and his tone and the fact that he's bad-mouthing his own skater to the camera. It comes across in a certain way, in my opinion. And, but I think I don't think that Tom has changed in this many years, but did his method work for some people? I think for getting jumps for the boys, yes, in terms of, but I don't think they reached their artistic and complete potential under Tom. There's like a disconnect there. It's almost like you try to put like an assembly line together, except skating is all about music and performance and art, and that is completely.
And emotion, emotion and the person. It's just sort of like the best artists just end up becoming themselves more and more. Like and I feel like there's a tightness to approaching the sport that kind of way. That, like you're saying, I get an interest in a result. I don't mean even a placement, but I mean a result in like 15 clean triple axles that week or something like that. Instead of skating is amazing. Triple axles are incredible. Like, let's go on a journey with them. I think it's just a different.
Look at Danielle Kaling. Okay. She's getting tall at that point in the documentary and a little bit tall for her level of coordination, but she's working with Frank and he makes her look so much better than she actually is. At some points, you look at that girl, I'm like, oh, she's too tall. She's probably going to be a great show skater, but not. And he's like really trying to polish her and trying to figure out are you going to be a show skater or are you going to be a serious competitive skater? And which way is it going to be? Because to get the show contracts, you have to have some competitive results and some, there's a way to get those things, right? And it's kind of like a subtext of what he's talking about with her. And they really do polish her up to look so much better than maybe she would be normally.
Otherwise,
she was just kind of pleasant to coach and he liked her. He had a genuine vibe with her. And you think oh, this is working. Not every personality type works together. And I think a lot of coaches like the smiley kid and they certain things. And you can see, I also think BB was so interesting to watch because she has so much talent, but then it's harnessing. Can she harness the adrenaline? Why is she popping and all of those kinds of things? So it would just be
even in the intro though, I did watch, this is a total side note because you told me I watched the Free Britney documentary or Framing Britney Spears or whatever. And the dialogue is telling you so much about how we're going to think about these people and all this sort of stuff. And of course, that horrible Diane Sawyer interview, that sort of thing. It's happening a little bit even in the introduction of this because they're like, here's BB. If she can ever not be a mess, she might make it to the top, or, you know, and they're like, here's
They show
Danielle.
her taking hard falls and they show her popping.
And then the whole discussion, a plot line is a young girl who's trying to be vulnerable and learn incredible skills, but like everyone's like, well, she's inconsistent, or, you know, like whatever. To me, it compounds a narrative before she even had a chance to try to change it.
Yeah. Yes. With her, yes. Look, she was probably pushing for the Olympics like a year before. She was probably ready to do, you know, like if maybe 07 would have been a better time to gradually get her ready. I think she had been inconsistent. You know, it's so hard for these, and they're putting a reality show together. The narrative is laid on thick in this show, but also you watch and what happens with like Alyssa and everything, and it's just there's so many interesting things that like could be discussion points about. You know, Alyssa seems very sheltered in the film, but very serious, but also very grounded, you know, and she's
and to me inherently special in every clip they show her.
So many funny things that she says. At one point she's like, well, you know, everyone's going to vote for Sasha and Michelle, and you're like, you know, at least she knew that going in, right, to that Marshall's event, because there are other people who perhaps wouldn't and would be, but I would have loved to have had Emily Hughes in there, and maybe Kimmy, and they all.
Well, it's sort of the more relevant front runners also, you know, I mean, who knows how they put all this together, but.
Yeah, it was just very interesting. It was an IMG production who did it. So I believe Jenny was supposed to be one of the skaters followed initially. And then, you know, she is in one of the episodes. I think it's the third or fourth episode where they follow her around when, you know, and she talks about her decision to quit. She's in like 2 episodes and they show her coaching and things like that. So, but it's an interesting film.
Well, and it lined up well with the Polina Edmunds interview with Ting, yes. I thought, because
first of all,
Ting is in that kind of group, but now I find.
Do you ever feel when Paulina's doing her interview that she's like, I'm the queen bee of the sorority and you are the freshman and you are just so lucky to be in my presence?
Yes. Well, I feel like it's Olympian. Like, I feel like she's like, feels herself as a champion of yesteryear.
Like there's such a
to encourage young women that competed with her. Yeah.
It's not that it's just like the funny way that Paulina speaks and how you have really beautiful elements. She loves talking about the elements all the time. Like, not like, oh, your jumps, or I love your skating skills. You have some really interesting, difficult elements.
She fancies herself like a young Tarasova, like they're coming to kiss the ring and seek her approval or guidance.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I watched a little bit then. I didn't realize she put them on YouTube, but only 3 were on YouTube. And you know, it's a little sad. It's like 14 people have viewed like the Ting interview or something, you know, like.
I don't watch it every week because I can't take Polina that much. I'm not going to listen to her talk.
It's a tough listen. I have to be really interested in who's on. I watched like a little bit of the one with Amber Glenn.
Saying it, like, what is it about Polina? But sometimes someone's attitude can actually be like funny. With this, like, she's trying to like be interesting, but then I think she hasn't learned. I think it's hard for a skater to learn how to critique someone because you're invariably going to get the feedback of you're being mean or you're doing this. And when you first do it, it's like a shell shock, you know, and then, right. So you say,
but if you don't talk about anything, what is the show?
And I mean, get little things in there where you're like, get her opinion on things. And Ting is like a very good skater. What I got from Ting is that, you know, the whole narrative that her dad has been very forceful. She said a couple of times, I'm really working on enjoying skating right now, which sounds like someone's been tortured or maybe the pressure has been too much. And I thought I caught that a couple of times. And I thought like, so she's trying to like have skating rehab. She was like working with Linachuk and now she's working with Paul Wiley. And you think like, Paul Wiley in Lake Placid, Lake Placid used to be a hotbed of training, right? From US and Canada and other countries would come in and work with people like Tommy Litz and then Natalia Dubova was there. But you think like, they haven't had anyone and they must be trying to build that up. And like, I was just like, how did you get to Paul Wiley. Like we just jumped like as if going to Lake Placid for training is really normal.
A tune-up like everybody does. Yeah, exactly.
I felt like, first of all, Paul moving there is like relatively recent, and that's an interesting person to work with. And what is he like technically? And rather than, I'm so glad you're working with Linachuk. She was an Olympic, I worked with an Olympic champion.
Well, there was a lot of that going on in that interview as well. And like she was telling Ting, she was like, she won a gold medal in ice dance. And I was like, I think we all know that. No, we don't know that. Okay.
She's also a coach of Olympic champions. So
yeah, like I think.
But I do think that Polina's trying to be nice. It's just like the way it comes across.
Here's the thing, and I mean, we've gone through our own journey, and like in certain interviews, like if you plan too much, what you're going to ask, or we know of other podcasts that have existed. If it's very much like I am reading my question to you, and then the person's like, yes, I am inspired by many former athletes. What music, you know what I mean? Like, if it's more of a dialogue.
Okay, Polina has a lot of confidence, and like she's trying to have a podcast. People talk about her podcast way more than they talk about. I don't know what Mariah's done with Ice Talk. I know she's had a couple of interviews. I haven't listened to them. I just, there's a time and you have to know that someone is who they're interviewing and what you seek out. And I don't know. I listen to Polina's more than I listen to Mariah's, and that's not because I like one better than the other necessarily. It's just like what people are buzzing about and what people are talking about. And I think they can both have interesting things to say. I think learning to be yourself is also really a vulnerable and difficult thing because they're both coming from that skater, right? And it's hard to make that leap to be on the other end because you risk saying nothing when you try to be nicey. And they're both relatively recent competitors, right?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, someone like Ashley probably could have done it. She somehow knew how to separate and be self-deprecating in a moment to make sure that you knew it was okay that she was about to ask you about a vulnerable thing or something. That could have been the personality to do it.
Advertising sports betting. What young figure skater is going to be betting on sports? People do bet on sports, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that that's Polina's audience because I imagine it has a younger audience based on just the vibe of the podcast. And
you take what you can get, lest we forget.
But usually these, when you have something like that, right, there are a couple different ways that you could fund one of those things. There's either a company gives you money. But in an internet world and in a skating world, oftentimes those places don't have just like a lot of money to throw at you. And because she's an Olympian and she's on a podcast network, they might have been able to throw some money at her, which is how she funds to do it and not. But oftentimes you'll get a back end percentage, which can be less upfront, but if it's really effective and works it can be great, like a Puritan's Pride or something like that, where if it like meets your audience, it can be very effective in that way. For this, it's like it's just so awkward. You're like, either they're going to realize next year this wasn't really a fit, or you're not getting anywhere with it.
People checking in on Ting may not also be at the racetrack. Maybe they are, but again, probably not but lest we forget Rachel Flatt, Colorado potatoes.
Again, awkward, but you get what you look.
Any day without a spud is a dud.
On one hand, I look at the Gracie's advertising when she's dancing in her underwear on Instagram, right? On one hand, I'm like, you know what? Tara Marlin is getting her that money and Gracie looks good and that go her. Then you're like, the US figure skating is really conservative. They must not care about her if she's doing that, right? Or like it's hard to win, right? Like
didn't we know, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn and I won't say a name, but there was a gay athlete that was gonna like be a representative, like a brand ambassador for PrEP, the medication, and they nixed it.
I don't think it was a brand ambassador. I heard that someone made a post about PrEP and they asked them to take it down. So that maybe they
even more ridiculous.
Yes. I heard that it was a post on their Facebook. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. I don't think they were going to be a brand. I don't think they were like advertising PrEP. I think it was more of like a public service thing.
And at the mere mention of it, they made them take it down. That's terrible.
But I have to say that that is very real. And that's a very real stigma that even happens in the corporate world. Where someone, I work in healthcare, I work at, you know, that discussion at different companies comes up about people are, and it's not just because it's gay, it's people are very uncomfortable talking about sex and sexuality to begin with, right? So that's the whole thing about, like,
well, in particular, backwards organizations that
yes,
are way behind the times, such as United States Figure Skating. Yeah.
And the excuse is always, we're a conservative organization or a family-friendly organization. You know, like, there are different ways that they can phrase it. You know,
Well,
but
if you're seeking out that individual's social media platform, then that's different. He didn't say it in the kiss and cry.
my opinion is, Gracie, you go get that money. You get that
Yeah.
money and you celebrate. That's my personal opinion. And good for Tara Modlin for getting her opportunities that many of these other skaters probably would love to at least have the opportunity to fund their skating and do these things. And Gracie was just in that music video and she's getting exposure and they're making some money for her. So, you know, I think
get it where you can, I guess.
Get it where you can. I don't see a lot of these other skaters doing it, although I'm impressed by Marie-France and the I Am, that you can tell that they have things working behind the scenes, right? Like, they have the videographer, they did that show. They clearly have like long-term strategies.
There's a bigger picture at play,
right? Because they know that the shows are dwindling, but we can make virtual shows, or we could make shows, and we did the Tessa show, and we have these ice dancers, and they're starting to find, I'm betting you that that's going to be a powerhouse in like 5-10 years. So very interesting. And we were talking about it, where were Carrera and Ponomarenko going to go? And they announced that they're going to be Scott Moyer, and that Scott Moyer is having this school. And I remember we talked about it, and I thought that I had two thoughts. Were they going to go to Marina, or were they going to go to Scott? She must have banked enough hours being a citizen because remember, she's been here for at least 5 years, if not longer. There are all those games where people thought that maybe she had to currently be in the US, but
there's so many silly rules about
there are silly rules, but if you banked enough time and they were in the US for so many years before you start training, and maybe you're there part-time and you go back and forth, you know, some people log days, how many days they spend, it gets ridiculous. So anyway, they're going to be with Scott. I think that's very interesting. And people are like, isn't that a mistake if he's a first-time coach? But you also think he has so much knowledge and experience, and he's really not, he's been working part-time.
Yeah. And again, I love in these moments, of course, that he was with both Marina and Marie-France. Like, in the same way we mentioned when Medvedeva went to Orser, I was like, say what you will about the nationalism, but she's now been introduced to a whole new school of thought that she can only bring back and help if she does go into coaching. I find those multiple perspectives can be so amazing then when they go to teach.
Yeah, also to think about it, they're with Igor. He was with Igor for 8 years? So he knows that technique very well. And he's not teaching them how to do a twizzle. They know how to do a twizzle. He's refining.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Coming up with other ideas. And he'll probably bring in Tessa for ideas. I mean, these are so, and he has Marie-France. I mean, he has access to so many.
And everybody is using teams of people, like you say. So it's not like everything rests on him.
And this is so curious. And I'm sure that Marie-France and Scott have talked about this. Let's say that after these Olympics, Hubble and Donahue retire and Chalk and Bates retire. Then the top teams in America become Carrera and Ponomarenko and Hawaii and Baker. So if Hawaii and Baker stay in, how are you going to handle two teams with two different coaching staffs under is everyone going to stay hunky-dory? I'm sure that they worked all of that. Like how
of course, yeah.
Because right now they have multiple teams. It's just weird they have different campuses and different teams, and does it become adversarial versus collaborative, and how do you handle that? I think that could be a very interesting storyline, because I do think he'll be successful. Also, I was thinking about it, you know, he might also be like, they kept saying in the announcement about he wants to work with younger dance teams. So he might also be like the farm team, because right now they don't have a lot of time to work with novice, intermediate dancers.
And to me, that's where real technique is taught. Like you're saying, even with Galina saying, why are you going to mess with all this later? Because the real building blocks have been done so early on. So to have someone like him working with you from the get-go could be amazing.
Yeah, because I was trying to read between the lines when they're all very excited. We're very excited, and they're announcing, but then they would mention like, now we can work with younger teams. You're thinking they clearly have a strategy. These are not people that do things on a whim. So
right.
Interesting, right?
Well, and even when we talk to Raphael, he's always said like, ugh, when they come to you at the final chapter, there's only so much. You want them at earlier chapters in the development so that you can really steer it.
I always...
I know,
what happens to some of these skaters, Raphael? I really respect Raphael, but what is happening to Gogolev? And why don't we have an update? And what is, there's just like, what's going on there?
Some people really do go missing. Again, that's why I tuned in to the Ting interview. Yes. But yeah, it's sort of the same deal. They just kind of disappear and you're like, whoa, what happened there? I was like all in. We were ready to go with you.
Ready, yeah. But Ting, she had 2 ankle injuries that sounded really, as someone who has had ankle gnarly, so.
Yeah.
She was also with Hamzi, but would go back and forth and that whole situation. So I'm curious what is going to happen there. How about in Italy? Matteo Rizzo against Daniel Grassl. Now, Daniel Grassl recently had COVID, so he is not...
Clearly, at the end of that free skate, bless his heart, I wanted to go pick him up and like bring him to the kiss and cry.
But I have to say, I think it's helping Matteo, at least looks to be. Look at how he's improved over the season. And he had a really rough year last year where he was trying to add things in, but he just never looked in top shape and it never seemed like it was going anywhere. It does seem like training with Daniel has just spurred him on.
The technical content in Italy is becoming real because Daniel throwing out the quad lutz and the quad flip. And then you've got Matteo with 2 quad toes and the quad loop. Now, listen, they weren't all perfect, but it's clear it's a country that's really revving it up, the content.
I didn't know how the 2 of them together would work. And I do think it's working. I think Matteo, if he could work on engaging with his face and maybe some music and costuming to make him pop a little bit more, it would be really helpful. I think
although even though it's the Greatest Showman one, it gives him a nice torso line. Like it's a very clean cut.
But I feel like around here and projection is the one area where he could really work because he's trying to add okay, so right now he's like a very pleasant skater that has the lower level quads, right? Like toe, like through loop. He does not have like flip and lutz, right? But to compete against the guys higher, he needs to go clean and get the good components marks. And
do you think that someone also has to do 2 quads in the short? I was wondering that here because we're into where most of the top guys are offering 2 quads in the short.
Or you have to have the most phenomenal program and skating skills of all time. Like someone like Jason can get in the 90s because he is so clean and maximizes elements. It has to be perfect, right? But he also has that intangible special quality. Other people are going to be like buried in the short, don't have backing and the components and the jumps and everything like that. And if someone like Jason makes a mistake, it's like goodbye, like you are so buried. Yeah, I'll be curious what happens there. Just watching the 2 of them, it does seem like, look, they don't have a ton of elite skaters in Italy, but they did put their 2 together and it does seem like they're revving up. So that's
it's interesting. I mean, I wish, again, we know you've got Italian ice dancers around. Can you work with them just a little bit? Maybe with Daniel. I mean, he gets better, relatively speaking, but it's COVID or not, it's just a tougher watch in general.
Interesting about that is that you take him and you take like Guinard and Fabry. They're coached by Barbara Fusar-Poli, who has so much face naturally, but her team doesn't. So is that just natural and something that she doesn't focus on teaching? Because, it's like you need...
But you know what? She does that in real life. I mean, of course, we all know when he fell at the Olympics and she gave him that moment. That's not a moment I think this ice dance team would ever give one another. Off ice either.
Yeah, we need to add some intensity and face.
But let's talk about that ice dance team for a second. Now, it is looking now, we think maybe that Nikita will go to Worlds. Yes.
That is what they're saying as of this moment. I mean, I think they've been the team every competition. We're like, are they going to compete? Are they not?
Because without the French, we weren't sure about Nikita going. We don't know about certain other high-level teams that may or may not go.
You know, there's speculation that maybe Piper and Paul's coach doesn't want to go to the Worlds, or the different teams. Look, I think everyone will be talked into going who is physically able to go. I think if you don't go, you risk, unfortunately, it's not just your health, but you risk like upsetting the federation and in a political sport. Like there's a lot.
But I just thought if those people do bail and suddenly 3 of the potential top 6 teams are gone, this could be a big moment for the Italians to pull out a 4th place finish or something. Yeah.
Look, there's going to be a lot of political jockeying, and the way I look at it as I think that Hubble and Donahue and Jock and Bates are positioned well to be on the podium. Beyond that, I think that Piper and Paul, this could be their year. If they, they've only had one virtual competition, which we'll get into David Wilson's thoughts about that, which, that is, certainly a hindrance for them. And you look at why the French aren't going and those kinds of things certainly play in. You're against Stepanova and Buchan. I certainly think that Piper and Paul can outskate Stepanova and Buchan. It comes to how are the judges going to be aligned and who's on the panel and, what's going on behind the scenes, because I think that there is a push, for the Russian teams. I think with Sinitsyn and Katsalapov, they've missed almost the whole season. And when we did see them, it was not very successful. So
are they planning on being at this next Russian event?
They're supposed to be until look, 2 days before we could find out something else. And then I think, but because they haven't, they've been so out. In ice dance, the way momentum works, the teams that have been competing, even if it's just once or twice, are certainly on a better trajectory to do well. Hubble and Donahue are, well primed to actually win this year, right? Which also that's a lot of pressure for them. So are they ready to, deliver, right? That's a lot of pressure for them, but I'm sure they can realize the opportunity in front of them.
Exactly.
To have a world championship team, first time in several years since Marilyn Charlie. So I think it's a big opportunity. You look at Jock and Bates, if they can get their training to a certain level, also are certainly in it for a silver, if not a gold. But you're against like Stepanov and Buchan, it's almost like the Russians could have to split the vote. Like, are they going to have to go with Stepanov and Buchan, or they have to go with Sinitsyn and Katsalapov? And I think that's why Piper and Paul could what if both of those teams mess up a little bit and you can skate in there? Because I don't think that Crimea River is a winning program.
No.
But I also think that the Michael Jackson is not original and they aren't really super trained this year, and you could kind of move in. Or Arden Fabry could move in. Like, I think that you could
that's what I was thinking. And they reminded me almost a little bit of like the Shibutanis at times, where it's like there's something that I'm not super responsive to on a passionate, emotional entertainment level, but I admire the crispness. I mean, they were a little rougher in the free skate here in a couple twizzle moments, but like in general, like there's a crisp, technical something that just has a clean quality to it.
Think about them doing the grease though, when Olivia Smart is doing the grease and she's so iconic as Sandy. Like, do you look as just like a bad?
Because I think the judges don't care because they know that their pattern, the Italians' pattern, is very good.
Yes, the pattern is very good, but this is ice dance, and when your presentation is not the same, when you have someone doing the same music who's giving you so much presentation.
But now wait, is she going?
Olivia? I don't.
To Worlds?
I would think they're going because Hurtado was injured. So I would think that they're going.
That would be a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't think even, because I keep checking the Wikipedia page for the World Championships to see if anyone keeps updating their entries.
Well, let's speak about this now, because the big thing, the buzz.
And Spain hasn't put anyone forward. They list the United States, Japan, a team from Kazakhstan, Great Britain, Germany. And this I had forgotten, figure skating Russia, right? Because they're not allowed to compete as Russia under the Russian flag with their anthem. And instead they're going to play, if they win, Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto #1, which I thought was an amazing choice. And then Estonia. I mean, but so I was curious what was happening in Spain.
I'm into this British team. You know, he's teaching classes for adult skaters. I like joined this adult skating group, and Lewis Gibson has some really good advice. Krieger Studio should ask Lewis Gibson to do a class. He was teaching us how to have extension.
He knows how to move that
pay him to do a class. I mean, Igor is very good at extension, but having someone with an alternative, you know, the way he was explaining, he was like in his kitchen, like showing us how to bend our knee properly. I was like, this is brilliant. Okay. He's very attractive lately. Did you see where like he was shirtless and like throwing up? I think after this Olympics, they are going to be such a team to watch, because the UK is just dying for like a team, and then they still have the dancing on it. So we're going to have Jane and Chris like hang on professionally for like 6 more years of that Dancing on Ice show. Mark Henready, like Mark will skate until he's like dead, right? So I think Mark and Gavin can just like keep doing this show. And call me. I have ideas for skaters who could be on this program. Like, let's put cute Ben Guthrie on there. Like, let's do the whole deal, right? Like, put Morrow on there. We'll start some scandals about who's dating who. Like, we could be like Cheryl Burke on Dancing with the Stars. We can make this a hit show. Okay.
Well, it's interesting because Fear and Gibson have done that thing that almost everyone else fails at in ice dance, which is actually look cool on the ice. They take a concept, you telling me Madonna or some of their other programs that have become so iconic, and if you gave that to another team, it would be cringy, and yet they are so authentically amazing in their movements. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I'm a fan. They're going places. Okay, I know that they have to add transitions, the other skaters would say, but I think they're going to. So
yeah.
The big thing is that Canada is picking their team, and they're having monitoring this week. And of course, there's like polite Canadian shade going on, and then we're going to talk about David Wilson. So
okay, with some more blatantly shady.
You know what? He's David Wilson. He can say whatever he wants. Okay,
we'll get into it.
Kiss the behinds of Skate Canada. Skate Canada should be kissing their behinds. So, a couple things. One. I think that I would sorry, I just like lost my train of thought. I was like,
I'm curious to talk to you with the men.
Yes, of the men. Okay,
Canada.
So the way they wrote their selection procedure is they're considering 2019 Worlds, which seems so close and yet so far, right? Think about 2019 Worlds in general. Zagitova, #1.
Medvedeva, Choreography. Like, I mean, so much happens in 2 years. Yeah.
So much happens in ladies and men. It's kind of the same players, not huge changes, but Kolyada, so much better than back then. Okay, so 2019 Worlds is being, that obviously Keegan Messing was there. And it seems like between their spots is, do you trust Keegan to go and get you 2 spots? Or do you trust Roman? And maybe Roman has more long-term potential. But then I think you get into a weird thing, right? Where let's look at the psychology of it, which obviously no one is going to do. They're going to be in 2 spots. But let's look at long term. If you send Keegan to these Worlds, which this is not anti-Keegan, but this is just, last year you had Roman Sadovsky. This is where you have to look at the human element. Last year you had the same people to pick from, and you wanted Nam to go. Random, right? It felt like a little more random. Like, so last year you didn't think that Keegan should go because maybe he didn't do so well at 2019 Worlds, or so last year they wanted Nam to go. This year, the only thing that we've seen is we saw Keegan at Skate America. He did do 2 quad toes. He was also rough around the edges. It was an early season competition. And that was several months ago, where he hasn't competed since. And David Wilson has thoughts on that. He didn't participate in the virtual competition, which I think is interesting that he didn't. I think they couldn't get a videographer for him. I don't know why they didn't just let someone film it on a cell phone, so at least he could.
But also, wasn't there was like a slight misunderstanding and also what the event was?
Yes, there was. And they changed it and they encouraged people to participate, right? But he was absent. So now you're in this weird situation where you didn't know that nationals were necessarily going to be canceled. So maybe you told them not to do it because you couldn't get a videographer. But now you're choosing this body of work and you're looking at Skate America and you're saying, well, he did a live competition and Roman only did a virtual competition. So you're like, wait a second. So now we're choosing between two people. And the only thing you have is someone who competed in person versus someone virtually. And does the in-person come more? And then you're like, well, Roman hasn't, historically delivered under pressure, maybe in previous years when he was a junior and things like that. But then I'm looking at, he was national champion. And the one time he's competed since, he delivered a pretty good performance. So, right. And I look at things like I'm looking at his elements and I'm like, I give him a lot higher GOE for a lot of and higher components, maybe than Keegan for certain things, his positions, his camel spin is gorgeous. His leg extension, the landings are gorgeous. And you're like, if you don't send him again, and he won your challenge, which because nationals are canceled is pretty much your de facto national championships, right? Like right. That's your big ranking competition of the year. So the way I would look at that as if I were him and you didn't send me last year because I was, my short program wasn't good. This year in the challenge, I killed it in the short program and did a good long. And you're not sending me again because I participated in your virtual event. You didn't have any live competitions. And someone who's like half Canadian, half American got to compete on US soil because it's easier with and you're just sending him. I worry that if you're Roman, you're going to be so deflated and defeated. And if you're Skate Canada, are you taking a Tanya Harding bat to your best skater at the knees, right?
Right.
At what point are you handicapping? Because now you're going to have someone who's not going to trust the federation, who's not going to be motivated, and who's going to say, I did work hard and I did improve my short program, and then you didn't send me anyway. And
what is the placement that Canada needs? Because they're only sending one man, right?
They're only sending one man, so they want to get two. This is the whole thing, is they need someone to place in the top 10.
And to me, of course, Roman can finish in the top 10, don't you think?
Yes, if he skates well, but they're nervous that he's not going to do well. But if you don't give someone the opportunity to fail or do well, right?
Yeah,
because the way
I see that, yeah.
I look at it as you're polishing a diamond, right? And I like Keegan a lot. His skating, I think this Metallica Nirvana. The program, his free skate works really well for him, right? And I think it's polished in it, but he's not a very polished skater, right?
It's what Keegan does, and we've seen what Keegan does. Keegan's doing the Keegan thing.
He doesn't do the Frank run-through method, and it's not all put together.
Yeah.
Roman always struggles with that second quad sow. I would like him to rearrange his program, change it for success. But I think that if I'm Skate Canada, and if Michael Slipchuk is worth a grain of salt, I would look at this and be like, this skater has the potential based on his body line and his skating skills and to develop this, get him the right mental coach, put him with the Marie France mental coach, and let's develop.
And give him that experience instead of punishing him for not having it. I mean, because listen, Roman's going to be a front. Let's say, God forbid, they only have one man for the Olympics. Now, what if you send Roman then, and then what? His first major event is not Worlds, but instead is the Olympics. I mean, listen, people have done it, but this is a huge investment for this federation.
And there's rumors that they want to now send, they have two ladies, so they want to send likely Maddie Sheezus, and then they want to send Gabby Daleman, which again feels random because, okay, yes, she did do well at 2019 Worlds, and maybe you think that she'll make the free skate at least, but then you look at it and you're like, but she did your ranking competition. She didn't do well. She didn't do well at your nationals last year. So then are you just canceling?
Why do you expect Worlds to be any different?
And how are you not taking? Here's the thing where this is where David Wilson makes a lot of sense in his article. And I don't think, look, they didn't keep all the time. Okay. I'm trying to word this very
I know, I love it. I can see all these wheels just going.
In the pandemic situation, canceling novice nationals, it's very sad for those skaters, but it's not Olympic qualification pressure, stress, right? Is what we're now handling. And is Worlds going to be the Olympic qualifier? Is it not? These are all things, and the ISU, by the way, you need to get your that in order, right? And let everyone know how this is all working. But for a situation when you can get multiple spots and the pressure is, the thought is that you have to do well at Worlds in this situation, you need to keep the top skaters going. Even if it's just 6, right? Top 6 in your country, keep them going. Top 4, top 6. We have a situation in Canada because of, and I get that like certain rinks are closed in certain provinces, but David did have a good point where he was saying, well, coaches would help each other. And you think,
right.
And Canadians have different values, right? They're more of collectivist in terms of we should all be able to skate. And that might not be the reality, right? Because now they only let elite skaters skate in certain provinces, and some provinces they can't skate, right? But then this is where you make allotments, and it's not fair, and I get it, and it's really not fair for a lot of people. But I do think that when you look at someone like keeping Piper and Paul in competition, if you're looking at like, let's pick the 4 dance teams, the top 3-4 pairs, and keep, 5 or 6 single skaters and keep them competing and going. And even if we have just like a very small virtual nationals or streamed nationals in one rink where people are in a bubble for a month or 6 weeks, and I get that there's different implications and safety things like that, and things are expensive, but
solutions could have been found.
Yes, and I think that's the word disgraceful so many times. But I also like have so much empathy and sympathy for people that couldn't skate, and there are times that we couldn't skate here, and people were skating in other areas, and I'm not an elite.
And we know the elite skaters found ways.
Some did, and some weren't legal, and some were legal, and it's a really bad situation, and it's a tough situation. But I think at the end of the day, the fact that they didn't keep those skaters going and competing in Canada is now they're at a situation where if you're a Piper and Paul, do you risk going to Worlds when you've only done one virtual event and maybe you did it in your home rink? Like, I don't know, you didn't get the feedback. I think they're doing last year's programs. They are so good. I think that they should go. Just because I think that they're great. If they're healthy, they should go, right? If they're healthy and mentally in a good place and everything like that, I don't think it'll hurt them to go.
And here's the thing, David wasn't just talking about taking COVID precautions or not. It was, I thought his most valid argument was when he was talking about Canada is hosting the junior hockey championships. And he was like, what is happening? Like, that is droves of teams together. Like, that is so much worse.
Literally, like, having contact, which you hope that you don't have contact in skating. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a whole thing too. Like, remember earlier on in COVID, there was the whole thing that they were blaming COVID spread at the rinks on hockey players. And there is some truth to like the hockey players maybe aren't always wearing their masks. There are just more of them and they interact more. I mean, it's so hard to know, like, was it the hockey player who spread it or this person? I see all sorts of stuff. Okay. And things happen. But
if you were able to make accommodations for something as big as that,
and somehow you worked around for hockey, I think that you can find similar workarounds.
Because that's actually what trumps the argument that everyone is making about like, well, but we couldn't leave the provinces or we couldn't do this, and it was like you found a way to do this. So if you found a way to do that, could you have not found a way to do the other that ultimately is for the good of country and Canadians? If they're able to qualify as many people as they can for the Olympics and, all that sort of stuff.
What? We may not be back to normal for next year, at least during the fall. So maybe some of these things we're still we don't know. We're hoping we are, but we might not be. So you have to.
And places like Italy have had their events, places like Japan have, that the US, nothing became necessarily a super spreader situation. Obviously the Russia thing is its own can of worms, but there's a lot of distance between Canada and Russia that most other federations have been living in.
Yeah, I know. I was so glad that he said it because I do know a lot of Canadian skaters who are very frustrated with you don't know if you're going to have a nationals, but then you have this.
And it's not about not taking COVID seriously. Like, just to clear, like David wasn't saying, who cares? We should just do everything normally. It was just that
imagine you're a skater
could have figured it out.
Participates in the virtual event, and then they're like, "Well, it's not as good as going to a live competition." You're like, "Yeah, but that was my only opportunity this year, and I did my best." And
you prevented me from doing that. Yeah, exactly.
From doing that, and I I did everything you asked me to do. And then you're gonna be like, well, he did a live event. I think we could trust him more. I'm like, well, you didn't trust him last year. And he didn't become Han Yu overnight. Like, what are you talking about?
So are you sort of fearful that they're leaning towards Keegan?
Oh yeah, I think they're gonna lean, but I'm not
fearful, but you think they're going to lean towards.
I think Keegan is a fine choice if you send him, but I look at it in terms of how is that fair for Roman, and how much better is Keegan going to be in a year, and how much better is Roman going to be in a year?
That's the thing. Roman's ceiling is much higher than Keegan's, especially in the next 4 years.
And certain discipline things that can be added to Roman, but I do see big improvement with him over the last 2 years, and that's why I'm looking at this and thinking like, this is not right, like what they're doing, right? And then it's almost like, okay, this is the kind of argument where I actually understand if someone like John Coughlin were upset in 2014, where you're like, okay, you're taking body of work and you're sending Ashley, but then you're just throwing darts in the pairs because you said, oh, well, we already took one person that was below the top 3. If you're going to take body of work,
do it or don't. Yeah, exactly.
Do it consistently. And I have to say, like,
and they had medaled on the Grand Prix. I think that they had won a bronze.
They had a much better body of work than someone like that Zhang and Bartholomew did. And the thought process is that we want to take one person, but not 2. That's upsetting the apple cart too much. Whereas I think actually, it
proves your point.
This is completely arbitrary and this is completely BS, right? Yeah. You're actually legitimizing your own decision if you go big across the board. Right. I look at this in terms of, okay, you're sending Keegan because you think he can get us 2 spots. But then, and the men's field is so deep that no one is guaranteed to get anyone 2 spots. That's why I'm thinking maybe you send who has the best ceiling. Right. Or I would certainly look for monitoring, and I would look for more than one monitoring. But guess what? Keegan also can't be monitored because he's in Alaska. So they are going around and they have more than just Mike Slipchuk going. Actually, his boss is now going to watch these monitoring sessions this week, and they have to make some tough decisions. But then Keegan can just film a program and send it in because he's in Alaska. So it is favored if like you don't, and in that I'd be like, okay, set up a Zoom session and let's watch you.
Right, let's watch it live. Yeah.
But they're not, like, this is how it feels skewed, and I can understand why, different things are like this.
And your argument here is like, it's different than, let's say, the Amber Glenn, Karen Chen situation, because this would be like if Amber Glenn did this.
I don't even agree with that situation. That I would want to monitoring too. I think it's too close to call. Let's monitor them and judge 2 shorts, 2 longs, and send whoever is more consistent and better. You know what? There are a lot of issues about Marta Caroli being abusive that are accurate and disturbing, but she also made decisions often based on data and based on watching people over time, and there are good elements to what she did that you can still use, right? Not saying that the way she treated people was appropriate or anything like that, but in terms of having someone perform, twice for monitoring under a pressure situation when they haven't had a lot of pressure situations this year, to me, that's reasonable, right? And that's making smart decisions. And I would hope that when they write these things in, so like, it seems like very loophole-ish, like 2019 Worlds, you can use that so you're going to make like a very difficult strategic decision in the men and then throw darts in the ladies. Right. That's not consistent. And that's where it feels political, and that's where it just feels a little icky. And we don't know that they're going to send Gabby, but the way that it's written, you're like, ooh, they are. Certainly, it's certainly more favorable to her to send that in. And you're like, okay.
And on the one hand, that, of course, as always is the conversation, Gabby has the talent, of course, to make the top 10. Gabby might not make it out of the short either.
Look, Gabby has all the talent. Does she have the discipline? Her free skate and her efforts at these virtual competitions weren't indicative of someone that I would send to the World Championships, right? Like that was not a World Championship caliber.
Whatever you think she can give you, it's clear she's not able to give it at the moment.
Able or isn't, right? And then you think, and everyone has a date when they're no longer in it and they're no longer fresh, and so I don't know, it's a mess. And I think that David Wilson has a lot of valid.
He brings up a lot of great points. I agree.
Like, holy moly. So yeah. Also, people were upset about the Zhulin article this week. There was some, I don't know what, he pretty much said that Zagitova and Medvedeva, I think he said what a lot of people think, that, they've reached the peak of their careers and that they achieved it all, is what he was saying. But he upset people when he named the Olympic team. They asked him who he would send to the Olympics.
You always have to remember what question is being asked and the context of it, like before it just sounds like he's going around thinking it's important for him to say that also,
But he gave a really great answer. And people were saying that they were from the bottom of his comments were from the bottom of the deck. I don't agree. So someone said, okay, so he goes, let's go back to the girls. They ask him, if you named the Russian national team in ladies single skating for the Olympics, who would it be? And he said Sherbakova, Trusova, and Valyeva, this trio in any order. Well, that's what they've been showing all season. So I don't think that that's controversial at all. And then they prod him and they go, why not Kostornaia? And he said, you asked for today. I answered.
And that's the thing. He's being a smart person in that, well, if I am naming the Olympic team today, based on the information we have today, that is the answer.
But he says the same things. If she gets healthy and she restores her triple axel, then she has to show it at the final. And if she does, then he is supportive of her. I think that's the same thing everyone else is saying,
Of course, yeah. So it makes total sense to me. How could you say you would send someone you haven't even seen skate? It's that misinterpretation that somehow it means like, who are your three favorites? Who are your three favorite Russian girls? That's not what the question is. In the same way as we've discussed many times, that the Olympic gold medal doesn't go to the fan favorite or the Lifetime Achievement Award. It just goes to the moment.
Usashova in there, but until you know what Usashova's quad or triple axel looks like, it's hard to shooting hypotheticals, right?
Yeah.
I think he was realistic that we haven't seen Kostornaia perform this year. She's healthy. He gave a really good. So then they asked him about, could these people be ice dancers based on their skating skills? And it was the way he answered it. He said that Sikrolitsa could have been a wonderful ice dancer. He said, I wouldn't have to teach him anything. Well, he had amazing skating skills. So I think that they go Plushenko or Yagudin. And he goes, no. Facts, right? They go, no. Lipnitskaya, Sudnikova, no. Trankov, he goes, yes, he could be an ice dancer.
Interesting.
So I don't think that was interesting, because Ted made that ridiculous comment about Medvedeva being
and he was talking based on emotion and personality. But of course, don't underestimate what there's a reason that at any level an ice dancer is called in to help the skating skills of an ice dancer. Do you know what I mean? It cannot be underestimated. Now, of course, we have the interesting scenario because of Daisuke kind of actually is sort of the only one I've seen reach such a high level and then make that kind of transfer.
And he still hasn't completed that yet, right?
Exactly. And he is one of the finest skaters of any singles discipline, I think, And
I always ask about Marin Honda or Satsuko, but they have a different kind of skating.
It's a different kind of skating skill. Yeah. I mean, it's a legit different blade. Of course, the whole thing's going to feel different.
Yeah. It also, I would be curious. He did say that he thinks that Medvedeva probably won't be number 1 or 2, but he thinks that what she achieved is amazing and that he would love to be wrong. So I think it's interesting. I thought he gave a good interview. I liked it. I'll link to it in the comments. I'll also link to the Tarasova interview. So we had Tarasova at home, right? Which was what we really wanted. By the way, I know that they said that she was out of nationals because of her back. I don't believe that. Or is she she was breathing really heavy here. And it is to say, she looked tired. I'm just saying, in my opinion.
In your personal experience.
I wondered if she had the coronavirus. It just looked like not the same Tarasova. She looked tired. She looked not the same. Maybe she's had back pain, not been sleeping well. I'm just saying, I would like to see an antibody test. I'm not saying she necessarily had it. I just said I would be curious to see.
You'd like to order one.
because it seems like all of a sudden having COVID became very controversial, and they wanted to, there was so much scuttlebutt about the Russians and having super spreader events, and then all of a sudden we didn't see Tarasova, and it was hush hush, and Igor Musk being passed, and that was hush hush.
Right, right.
So, so amazing, right? You talked about like skaters who can't push themselves through and get to with the Tom Z, the Ice Diaries, she called Koftoon a wimp, right? Which is amazing, because this was a birthday interview, right? And that same day, all the skaters who she's probably been like had some tough love on, all send her like the birthday greetings on Instagram, and then she shares some of them. So like, love it. And of course, Koftoon was one of them. I just I love the theatrics and the bullshit of Tarasova like so much. She is a gem. And Russian people in interviews it reminded me of when I interviewed Mary Wilson as a very young college student, and she was not in like the easiest mood that day of wanting to talk about certain subjects, and right. They would ask Tarasova, well, why didn't you have your own skating school? Because like Yelena Tchaikovskaya has her own skating school, and it's beautiful. And I don't want to talk about this. It's not interesting to me. And then she goes, but if I did have it, I don't think it would hurt Russian skating. It would certainly be good for the coaches to get back on their feet again. So she clearly does want to talk about it, but she's like, it's
right.
To me.
Exactly.
I don't want to talk about this. And then she would talk about it. Like I think
it was also in your Shae-Lynn interview when she was telling you that like that woman lives and breathes skating. Like it is intense. And so when you have someone that intense about it, of course you think people don't work hard.
I asked
you know what I mean?
I said, what is Tarasova like as a coach? Because he's been in the rink. Maybe she didn't coach him directly. And he goes, she has a lot of energy. She yells a lot. And no one can understand what she's saying with that much energy coming out of her. But I just think you feel her power. You feel what she's saying.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're a wimp.
No, he just could not push himself to the maximum to kill himself.
Which, I mean, his results seemed to back up her comment. Of course, Koftoon was so interesting because I was almost a little upset Plushenko was at Sochi instead of Koftoon. He sort of like took that.
I really liked Koftoon, but I wanted the show. I was rooting for me as the viewer, okay? It was more interesting for me to have Plushenko there than it was.
Until there was that Cup of Russia. You remember that famous Cup of Russia with the cameraman I just want to give a big hug and kiss to?
Yes, because the one where Elaine Chartrand skated to Gone with the Wind.
Yes, or was it Gone with the Wind or Sunset? Whatever it was. They kept panning.
Maybe it was Sunset. Polina.
I think it might have been Sunset. Yes. And they kept showing like horrified faces in the crowd every time Chartrand would fall down. But they also kept panning. I think it was during Rika Riverdance. Rika Hongo, was that her? She during her kiss and cry, they just kept panning to Koftoon, just making out with some model in the stands.
Yeah, great. Again, this is what we love. The Cup of Russia.
They show like a triple Lutz landing, and then Koftoon making out again. Then we go and see a spin.
The interviewer is asking her about Besmianova and Bukin and said, we know that this was your favorite pair, which it is one of her big success stories as a coach. And she's like, but no, I want to talk about Moiseeva and Minenkov. And
Min and Mo.
Now, the funny thing is that in her book, it's all about how she gave Besmianova Carmen, and there can't be two Carmens, that they were two divas, and that they were skating to this dramatic music, and they were just butting heads because of their passion for the Carmen music. Okay. Maybe you just butted. Did you butt heads the next year too? Because I want to know about that. Right? When you weren't. Right.
Is her book in an English translation?
No, but I definitely need to do a dramatic reading of it. Like
Obviously, yeah.
Right.
Because some of them, like even Sonia Bianchetti's, or like some of these random ones have been translated into English. But I wish hers would be, because I would totally read that. And same thing, I've always said I want to read Chen Lu's, Lu Chen's.
So I want to ask, so yeah, that her book has so many like little nuggets in there that are like based on a true story, and then like there's some that are not so, like that the whole town in Massachusetts was coming to see Rodina and Zaitsev, and they just, every time she goes to Massachusetts, she just thinks of this town that lifted them up to the golden, like, it's so Tarasova. It's so great.
It's so extra. It's so extra. Yeah.
And about like her fighting with Grishuk and that whole situation. Oh my God, it's so good. And then like she says like stuff about Thai, and I'm like, Thai, is this true? She's like, we never competed there. I don't know what she's talking about. You know, the whole thing is great.
Okay.
So Tarasova is like yelling at her dog mid-interview. Like they don't even stop the camera. Like
you're getting the real experience.
And it looked like what a Tarasova dog should look like. So great. It's so great. She's just
welcome to my home. Yeah.
And I love asking her about, no, we had a wonderful marriage. No, it's not hard to have a long distance marriage. I can fly anytime. You're like, her husband lived thousands of miles away, and that helped that relationship.
Yeah, you know, fair enough. Fair enough.
But she did say about Minnie and Mo, she said that she came home from the 76 Olympics and she was feeling herself, success as a coach. And she's like, we got the silver medal ahead of all the other countries, just behind Pakamova and Gorshkov. And her father goes, we get fired for silver medals. And she said it brought her back down to earth because perspective.
And that informs a lot, doesn't it? About the whole concept. Yeah. Yikes.
I love it. The drama of Tarasova. Listen, she's lost so many people. She's born the day before Valentine's Day.
The grandeur of Tarasova.
I hope Gudin visits her often with Tomianina. I don't know. I worry about her in that house, but she looks like she's doing fine, okay?
And the dogs love her. Keep her company.
It's great. Okay.
Amazing. Amazing.
She just, the moods of Tarasova during this interview are like up and down. You can put on the English subtitles. It's fan. I'll link to it in the description box. It is a journey of emotions. Like she kind of like snarls, but she has this like magenta lip on, and she's just like.
And occasionally she takes these like super like singer breaths. She'll be like this sort of smelling the rose kind of situation. If she can smell.
Yeah, but then I was like, wow, this ornate chair that she has does look like it could be in Johnny Weir's house. But then you have too many tchotchkes, Tarasova, too many things. Less is more, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or more is more, I guess.
Too many pictures on the walls. Maybe it looks like a little.
She's a maximalist. Yeah.
She really is.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Editing? I don't know. I was looking at her I was taking it all in. All right.
Yeah. As well you should. As well you should.
It was so great. It was so fantastic. Loved it. Loved the whole deal.
Loved it.
And why wasn't she comment? See, this is why I think that she might have been sick, because she didn't comment the Russian Cup or the Channel 1 Cup. It was only, usually they commentate together. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I certainly hope they're not phasing her out. I am not ready for that, okay?
Yeah.
Put that woman, I don't care if no one really likes her and they only like her to her face, you put her on television, it is where she belongs, okay?
Or get her on Twitter. Like it was when Dick Button had kind of been phased out, at least you remember he was like live tweeting Sochi for a little bit.
As we want, right? This is what we want.
Giving us the exact commentary we had been missing.
Also, what I like about Tarasova is, do you ever notice that she wears such dark nail polish, and that when she talks, they look like claws?
Yeah, I think that's intentional.
I just imagine her like clawing at skaters when she's upset. Like, and then
and screaming unintelligibly from the boards. Yeah.
All of these skaters remember everything I did for them. All of these students, all of my husband's students became teachers. I was just like, I would like a fact checker.
Amazing. But they do kiss her ring. Do you know what I mean? Like they do pay homage. Like it's very clear.
Aliona kisses her ring all the time. How about when Aliona won?
Exactly.
She loves skating. Okay.
Yeah.
Galena's the same way. Just because they don't have a top skater right now doesn't mean that they're not still running things in their mind, okay?
Right. And truly still have a love affair with the sport when so many have become so jaded.
The other day I asked Galena, I was like, how's Victor doing? Good. He called me. We talked for maybe 45 minutes. We analyzed the entire team event that happened. Like, I bet they did. I bet they did. You know, this is
as if they were selecting. Yeah.
Look,
same.
Right here.
I was just gonna say.
Just because they leave the sport doesn't mean it leaves them. Then they find adult skaters to listen.
To continue that passion. Yeah. Frank always said the same.
I got that other adult skater. He's now taken from Galena. You know, she told him that, you know, he did good jumps, but, you know, they pray together before he does his sit spin.
What? And it sounds like you were the other day too. Yeah.
What did you say?
It sounds like you had to the other day as well.
She doesn't tell me that we have to ask God for help before I spin. But she says other foul things. But
okay, got it. Specific to you. That's nice. Okay.
She did say that on the first day that my forehead was like, maybe the beads of sweat were she was trying to describe something that I really didn't get. I had a funny experience skating this week that I thought you and the viewers would appreciate, is that people get programs and sometimes people will take exact music edits of someone and get a program of their own. And there's this girl at the Rink. I get the vibe that she's very into herself and I could stand to be more like her, okay? Like she just owns her sensuality and her expression and her, but she takes up a lot of space on the ice. She looks for no one on the ice, okay? You don't know where she's going. And she's getting a program to Ashley Wagner's exact Moulin Rouge edit. So if you have ever wanted to skate to The Show Must Go On, or your makeup is flaking, and of course she's going like this.
Because it's all about sign language. That's what dances.
Layers her music. And she skates to these war horses. She skates to Be Italian, and she skates to Phantom of the Opera. And now she's skating to Moulin Rouge, and she's just like doing the most. And like, I'm just like trying so hard not to laugh. And also, we had a great moment where we're getting ready to go on the ice. And she was saying to Yulia and Galena, we're sitting, why do the Russians do those quad, triple, 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 half loop, triple combinations? You can't do that in competition. And Galena goes, for the rest of the world.
And it's why no matter what the hell happens on that landing, they can always pull out a combination. Yeah.
They can always pull it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember when we just used to be impressed at Medvedev's like, let's loop toe or something? Forget it. Now we're up to quad, triple, 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 triple. Yeah.
Love it. These are queens who are just giving you that kind of an energy. So
did we see any more of Aliona, by the way, this week?
You mean Aliona Savchenko?
Yeah, I'm intrigued because she was showing her and Bruno back on the ice again. And like, there's always that glimmer of hope. Right, of course, as we knew. But then we got this thing that she was going to start her own school.
As she should. What?
I agree, but I was like, can't you just wait and try for one more?
I know that she's supposed to do something for the Megan Duhamel. You know, I've been so busy this weekend. I had planned on going to Megan's sessions and I didn't get to, but I wonder if she filmed any of it, because if Aliona did a workout, I will pay any kind of money. I don't know if it's for Megan's like personal or whatever it is. I don't care. I need to like
be a part of it. Yeah.
Sessions there that I will pay for. Is it like,
well, I still remember you talking about those group workouts where she was like full blown shaming other Olympic medalists.
I did it on my own with her as well. She needs to bring it back. I know that it was a COVID thing and it was keeping her going, but Aliona, if you could please work this like once a week, I just really need it in my life. It was amazing. Your energy, your passion for fitness. I did a good workout today too, because I'm trying to get my muscles back, and Kristen was away for the burn that we do at Krieger Studio. So Stephanie Roth used to compete against Jenny and Deanna. She was in some of these sectionals videos. She's become a personal trainer. We skated with her a bit over the summer. And I remember she was like in a sports bra once and she was skating and all I could look at were her abs. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah, okay.
Respect. Okay.
Okay.
Very good workout today. Recommend it. So
nice.
Yes. So yeah, just so much is going on. And now we have like Igor's Edge class has become all the adult queens are doing it now. These two sisters from my town do it. The one that's that does the beauty segments on TV, they've started. There's this boy, Eugene, who he's only focused in ice dance. So he's a little more advanced than I am there, which motivates me to like, you know, get better.
Skate up. Yeah.
Yes. So we have like a little competition in the Edge class. It's like we've got quite a little crew going on. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah, Igor and the adults on the Saturdays at 9:30. Like, be there. Let me tell you, it's
or be on the flat of an edge. Yeah, if you're not. Yeah.
We're doing forward outside twizzles. And then he goes, Dave, can you demonstrate? And I was like, okay. And then he goes, yeah, so you want to not do what he just did. Like, how dare you? But you know what? It got me to correct my knee position and it worked. Like,
and there you go. It worked for you. Yeah, okay.
How dare you, Igor?
It's not how I am motivated. Not at all. Not at all.
Well, no,
so wait, remind me, so when is this Russian event? Do we get to watch it?
Yes, of course we get to watch it.
Yeah, I would assume so, but it's got to be coming up quick. Because if
end of the 1 second.
Because I would think they want all of them to have time before Worlds.
Yes, they have to name the world team. I want to say it's the last weekend in February.
February? Okay.
It's a little hard on the Wikipedia to like navigate this year. Okay. The Russian final is February 27th to March 2nd.
Okay.
In Moscow.
Okay.
So
and I now subscribe to Channel 1.
Why weren't you before?
Well,
you know how many times people ask me, how can I watch these Russian events? Where have you been all season?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I've always gone to, but now that I subscribe, but then it like keeps sending me all these other strange, it threw a wrench in my recommended video queue because now I'm just getting like random Russian news or like a Russian cooking segment. And I was like, how did this get in my queue?
What you needed. Okay.
Exactly. I didn't know it, but that's what I'm getting.
It's called an investment into your skating.
Exactly. Like Canada should do with Roman.
Yes. Okay. My God. I agree. All right. Would you send Roman or Keegan? And who would you send for Canada in the ladies event? And then sound off on what what you think the standings are going to be for the top 10 for the men. And should Piper and Paul go? Do you think that they can pull off the bronze this year, or will Russia be up to things further?
Oh, and did you hear about this? Nicolo Della Monica, Matteo Guarise, they had like a, sort of a regular outing for them, some falls and some doubles, that kind of situation. But earlier in the week, during a twist, the way she landed, her blade cut him open on his chest and she hit her head.
Why did they compete then?
I know. Well, they seemed to be okay. They were clearly very
pairs that they would risk sending to the Worlds. Why are they?
They were very spooked, it seemed, when they were doing the twists. But they were like making jokes about it, like she was trying to like off him, like in the twist or something.
You look at shirtless because this is what we'll.
I was gonna say, if he needs a second opinion on what to do about the injury, I'm happy to help him.
Sparring, and then, how are you feeling about what Jason Brown should skate to for the Olympic year? This is a discussion piece because...
Well, I'm thrilled he's keeping the short. I think that's...
There's a rumor that he might go back to Schindler's List, or he could do the Peggy Fleming piece. I think he should do the piece that he did for the Peggy Fleming trophy.
Which was what again?
I don't know, but it was so amazing. It was so amazing. I was like, what is...
I'm not recalling him in the Peggy Fleming.
I'll link to it in the...
Okay. Yeah, because I think Schindler's List was... very good, but I think we need something as iconic as the Sinnerman is.
Yeah, I think his Schindler's List was iconic, but I feel like he's done it. right?
Yeah. No, I think they could do more in a new piece of music.
I like a new Jason program. Come on, we at least need something new to get excited about.
And it sounded like in his very honest interview, where he was like kind of looking for motivation. So I think like a new program, or, he was kind of like, it was hard to be motivated this season, understandably so. Give him something that really inspires him. I want Jason to pick it almost.
I know, but I just don't want them to think, like sometimes it seems like they go for the viral moment, go for something beautiful and just let that.
Yeah. I don't know that they were chasing a viral moment with Sinnerman.
You know,
they were chasing a viral moment with Hamilton, and that's why it backfired.
There's a gymnast on UCLA's team, Marzetta Frazier, who is constantly trying to chase a viral moment rather than just have. And Gracie Kramer tried to chase one, and it never happened for her. And Marzetta tries, and it's like these gymnasts that try too hard versus the people that are just authentic. Like Mia is just that sassy, like all the time, but Marzetta seems like she's putting on like a girl that really wants to be in theater and is like pretending to be so dramatic. You
can read that desperation or that goal. Whereas again, what makes a viral moment is the authenticity. So chase the authenticity. Same with the river dance. Like Jason was like exuberant.
That's who he is and was at that time, right?
Yeah. That's why it worked. Not because of the music, not because of this, not because of the costume, but because he responded so exuberantly to it. So I think if he gets something he really responds to, you're golden. It's right there then.
And then how about Mariah Bell looking like, trying all these combos, landing them. It almost seems like she is freed from the pressure she was under this season. And now she is.
That's a beautiful way to put it. She's freed from that expectation she'll win nationals.
And it looks like maybe that's going to drive her for next season, though. She'll have something to prove. People don't expect her to make the Olympics. And boom, she's going to come in. And it does seem like she's a skater that responds to adversity well. And maybe she didn't, maybe just this year it didn't happen. And, Adam wasn't, there every day. He just got engaged, pair of Bens to Adam and Justin for the adorable engagement photos. So yeah, I'm curious. I think we'll see Adam on TV coaching her next season, don't you? He knows how to.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he knows how to be in the right moment for the cameras. Yeah. There's an art. It's an art. Yeah.
It's an art. He was made for this sport. Okay. Oh man, so much happening. What a week. All right.
I know it actually was like a pretty newsy week, but it also helps. Like I've been down such a rabbit hole. Yes, the Ice Diaries, but also all these World Junior Championship and junior national things that you're posting. Watching a young Megan Duhamel, watching a young
with the headband and the hoop earrings and
she's like, oh, I was terrible at my qualifying event. I shouldn't even be here. So feels great.
Exactly what I would imagine young Megan being like. And then how about Eric doing Phantom and Dylan with the boy band hair?
Yeah.
Cookie Bay, who was always so beautiful and always the subject of like the Canadian gossip. Like, is she dating Moyer? Is she dating Bryce? Like, is she kicked in the face? Like she was always just the subject of it all. Remember?
Okay.
Remember that like she and Bryce skated to like the way we were, and like the commentators were like, well, they've had an icy relationship. Like it was all the subtext with her.
Amazing. I didn't watch that part, but I was watching like also the young Mariah clip and all this sort of stuff. And you would put up Caroline, all the whole gang.
Lots more to come. Lots more.
Yeah. It's exciting. I like going back when there's no other event to watch, especially.
Lots of plans, so don't worry. There's a lot happening. So, and we're going to be judging the 2007 Worlds for Ice Dance and a bunch of other events coming up. So, very excited, and I have an exciting interview tomorrow that I'm doing. So, lots of stuff happening, and lots of stuff coming in February. So,
exciting!
Hope and Edge and look sexy, everyone.